Question number 1 asks you to write the next 3 terms in the sequence and then find a recursive rule for the sequence. So hopefully you can see that each time you're multiplying by -3. If you cannot see that off the top of your head, then what you should do is think about, well, it's clearly not an addition pattern. I'm not adding the same amount each time. So let's think about this. 0.2 times some number r has to equal -0.6. So r has to be -0.6 divided by 0.2, which is -3. Then just check to see that the second term times -3 equals the third term term times -3 equals the fourth term, and then you know that your r value is correct. So using -5.4 times -3, my next term would be positive 16.2, then times -3 would be -48.6, and then times -3 would be 145.8. Now, a recursive rule refers back to the previous term. In other words, I'm not just plugging in a term number to find a term. I am saying, what do I do to the previous term to get to the next term? And I multiply the previous term by -3. But I have to have a starting point. So when you are writing a recursive rule, it is absolutely essential that you put the starting point down. So I start with 0.2 and then multiply by -3. So for n greater than or equal to 2, so starting with a sub 2, in other words, a sub n is equal to a sub n minus 1 times -3. So that's your recursive rule. You could also write it as -3 times a sub n minus 1 with that in front. Okay, now let's take a look at number 2. Number 2 says if the fourth term in a sequence is -22 and the 12th term is -2.8. So I'm going to actually draw that. 1, 2, 3, 4 is -22. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 is -2.8. Find the 85th term. Okay, so there's obviously got to be quite a bit of work in between. You can't just jump to the 85th term right now. We have to figure some things out. It says it's arithmetic, which means you're adding each time. So I'm thinking here, how many times do I add something to get from term number 4 to term number 12? So what I'm adding is that number we call d, the common difference. So I'm literally going to just write it down. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I can say that -22 plus 8d is equal to -2.8. And if I solve that for d, add 22, divide by 8, I get I get that d is 2.4. So another way you can do it to find what d is you could say, what's the difference between -2.8 and -22? So -2.8 minus a -22, it turns out to be 19.2, and then just 19.2 divided by 8, which of course is the same thing you did when you solved that equation. A third way to do this, so that you don't have to do all three, just whichever way works best for you. A third way is if you happen to remember how to get to the fourth term and the 12th term using the formula, you can say the fourth term, a sub 4, is equal to is the first term, a sub 1, plus 3 times d. And the 12th term is a sub 1 plus 11 times d. Well, of course, I don't know a sub 1 and d, but I do know what a sub 4 and a sub 12 is. A sub 4 is -22, and a sub 12 is -2.8. So then, if I were to subtract one equation from the other, I would get -8d is equal to -19.2, or d is equal to -2.4. Okay, so now, I'm sorry, positive 2.4. Now that you know what d is, there's a couple options then for finding the 85th term. I noticed that I added 8 to get from 4 to 12. So just 12 minus 4 is 8. I had to add d 8 times. So I could think, what's 85 minus 12? Well, that's 73. So I could start with the 12th term and add d 73 times. So I could say -2.8 plus 73 times 2.4. And that would get me to the 85th term, which happens to be 172.4. Or if you're thinking, hey, I know how to do it if I can get to the first term. If I knew what the first term was, then I know that I could add d 84 times to get to the 85th term. So you could count backwards and say, okay, I'm subtracting d minus d, oops, that's a 9, minus d minus d. So I could take negative 22 minus 3 times 2.4 and find out that the first term is negative 29.2. A sub 1 is negative 29.2. And then I could say that A sub 85 is start with the first term and then add D 84 times. So 84 times 2.4. And that would also get us to the same number. So this is the answer. I just wanted to show you a lot of different ways you could think through this problem. If you remember the pattern, you do not have to remember a formula. So what I want you to think of is start with the first term and add that common difference one less than the number of times you need to, or than the term number. Because remember, to get to the second term, you add d once. To get to the third term, you add d twice. To get to the fourth term, you're adding d 3 times. So to get to the 85th term, you're adding d 84 times. The formula, in case you want to know what it is a sub n is equal to a sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d. But so many of you were trying to memorize the formula without understanding it that you messed it up. So understand it, and then you don't have to remember it. That's the word to the wise.